over the years, I have been influenced by her work at several points of time. I think the first book I read was the one she co-authored, that is co-authored by Professor Kuntal Elijah, whom we heard yesterday as a peacekeeper. And another, I have been associated also with her work, her research, because I think I was associated with the work on negotiating it has come out as a book, Negotiating Territory with Local Governments, and I happen to be evaluating the pieces that we are managing. It was an excellent piece of work. I was, of course, influenced. The first book I was referring to was Dancing to the River, on the shore, on the way in which people have struggled, people living in the shorelands have struggled over the years. And the recent book, Agrarian Crisis, has gone through, but I have still not read uh, Aina Mukhumukhi. I have not read that yet. I've got it, got a copy, and just still waiting to read it. So let's not waste much time. Over to the speaker, Professor Gopal Shankar. He will be speaking on gender issues on SDG, Sustainable Development Goals and Climate Change. Over to Professor Shankar. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Shubhana, for your kind words. Can you hear me? So, and thank you very much for inviting me here. Concern contacted me. And this is for your information that this college was headed by my ex-teacher, Professor Raja, for quite some time. And she invited me once in 2011 for another conference. And so when I was mentioning about our work on Chor and my presence with that work here, some time ago. So this is my second visit, and I'm pleased to have it. So for having me here. So in this talk, I have given the title that I'll be talking on gender concerns in sustainable development goals and climate change. But before heading into that, I was thinking that we should remind us every time we start talking about ecological crisis or environmental crisis that the very value of environmental crisis was started by the woman. We should not forget it. We all know it, but I think we should repeat this again and again so that we know that the very environmental concern was started by Rachel Carson and the book was Silence Me. We all know about it. And what Rachel Carson was talking about, she was talking about DDT. And what DDT was doing, actually it was polluting or creating a havoc problem in the crop, in the food. So you know that a woman who is concerned about food, because that time also and now also. So that food is being contaminated by it, and that is going to make a havoc around the world and pollute everything around. That was spotted by a woman, and every environmental studies courses, they start with this that Silent Spring is the beginning of environmental dialogue. So environmental dialogue was started by a woman, and it is very much gender. Whenever we talk about environmental pollution, environmental crisis, it is always gender. Sometimes we don't mind it, and we try to bring in gender in another, like a box, but it is everywhere. Each and every environmental crisis is gender, and it doesn't happen men and women equally. It happens differently. So that we should remember all the time. Now coming to the sustainable development goal. All we know that there are 17 sustainable development goals, and UN is very generous to give us one sustainable development goal which is dedicated for gender equality. Right? My problem is I have a lot of reservation before heading into the goals. Actually, I want to talk about the conceptualization of sustainable development goal itself, because because for me, sustainable development is a kind of thing I don't understand really what they are talking about. Kind of. I have always a problem with this term because we know if we understand the language of the universe, how the universe is created, how evolutionary process works. So nothing is sustainable in this world, in this earth, and not possible unless and until we set a time frame. Right? What kind of time frame we are talking about? Then we can talk about sustainable development. Which sustainable development goals never mentioned to us? We talk about sustainable development. So I have always problem. My next problem is with the definition itself. How to define sustainable development. I'm just going to read one single line from here. They say development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Again, I have a lot of problem. Then we have to think about reducing the use of the current resources to make sure that the future generations can have it. But then my problem is what is happening to the present, to the 60% of the world, people of the world who do not have actually minimum basic food requirement, health facilities requirement, and education and all other things. The present is something we have to talk about, and we cannot just talk about, like, we cannot generalize the condition of 10% of the people who are consuming a huge proportion of the resources of this world and 70% or 60% who are not enjoying anything, and we cannot put them into the single bracket. So if we think about the 60% or 50% of the population of this world, then we have to be concerned about the present, not for the future. So, and if we think that consumption and we have to keep something for the future generation, whose future generation we are thinking about, again, another 40% people's future we are trying to ensure at the cost of not having the present minimum basic needs of the 60%. So sustainable development goal, the definition itself is a bit problematic. We should think about it. And then another anecdote is added with this definition itself. It says that usually a society which learns faster from its mistakes and rectifies its behaviors will invariably be more sustainable. So basic thing here is learning from the mistakes. So I would like to remind you that how this learning from the mistake will be mitigated. Because again, that 60% and 40% case is coming up. Because a few people who are in the policy dialogue, who are in the beginning layer of it, everywhere it is talked about that inequality is increasing not only in India but also in India it is happening. Yeah, but even in the Western countries, they are also handling the situation of inequality, poverty, unemployment, etc. etc. So the problem is when you think about that, who does the mistake? It's the powerful people, the elite, the policymakers, the government. They decide. They does the thing. They do the mistake actually. They do the mistakes. If we think that is the mistake, but still we don't know. We are confused, which is good and which is bad. Chatham Road is going to be a development, sign of development, or the destruction of the Himalaya. We are not sure yet. We don't know which side we will take. We are sometimes confused. Oh, okay, it's good. It's a development. But we really don't know whether it's going to create, and we all are sure that it is going to make a havoc on the Himalaya, because Himalaya, as all of us as geographers, we know that the youngest mountain and it's really very, very vulnerable and fragile mountain thing. So, mistake is being done by, say, for example, 5% of the people or 10% of the people who are deciding the way we want the development, the way we want to disturb the whole ecosystem or ecology of this earth. And then who are the sufferers? Sufferers are voiceless, marginalized groups of people living in the forest, and we would like to cut that forest for the greater roads or making industries or making a township. So the mistake is being done by the 4%, 5% or 10% maximum people of this earth, and the sufferers are another 60% or maybe more sometimes. In villages after villages, and forest dwellers, they have been uh, displaced somewhere and they don't know how to handle it. So this situation again, it creates a question that if the decision makers are not being suffered, then how we can think that learning from the mistake will come? Because the people who will do the mistake, they will never suffer. And the people who suffer from those mistakes, they are not in a position to tell you that don't do this, right? So again, it's a very fluid kind of statement which I feel that doesn't have a strong validation and empirical validation itself. And then coming to the question also, SDG itself is a problematic situation. Before we get into that, everybody is talking about it being nice proposal, and UN is always very good in making proposals. Rio conference and then development goals and then millennium development goals and then again sustainable development goals. Probably they have already started preparing another one once the sustainable development goal is going to expire in few days, in few years time. So it is actually a problematic position what exactly we want for to protect our future for this earth and for us human civilization. And again, I would like to remind you that environment is not new. We were always part of that environment itself because the whole evolutionary process is part of our environment. And that environment was all around us, but we never talked about it. Unless and until Ravi told us that something is problematic happening by our activities. So only when we felt that we have some kind of problem we are going to face in the future, the way we are heading in the path of development, then we started to talk about environment. So it is very essentialist approach of environmental science. And still we are interested only in the interest of human civilization and nobody else. Plants and animals, and we think that we own the earth. So that ownership of human civilization, the concept is very problematic. And that is being critiqued by many other disciplines and many other people. I'm not getting into that because my concern is the gender. Then coming to the gender question. So I was talking about that around 17 sustainable development goals. So one goal is dedicated for gender equality. And 16, we are not talking about gender at all. And that's a problematic situation. It is typical idea of gender and women and stuff. Like inclusion. We often use the term inclusion. This year probably the inclusion, Women's Day, International Women's Day, it was inclusion. I always say, you don't need to include women, just don't exclude. Just practice, don't exclude. Including is always problematic because development practitioners started to find, okay, probably we will try to meet the program women in development. Then they thought, oh, we are including women, but it's not going to work. They changed the nomenclature. They say, okay, the women and development, what came up, and then MDGs, many things are coming up, but still the very idea, because 2023-24, again, the idea is the inclusion. And inclusion itself is a problematic proposition. Because when it includes somebody, that means somebody is including who is in part of position. An included person is always hierarchically at the bottom. So inclusion, the idea of inclusion, I would argue that idea of inclusion should be discarded and we have to start practicing how not to exclude. It's the way we can think about the better condition for women. Another problematic for this Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is gender equality, it is still said probably Sustainable Development Goal was conceived in 2013, right? If I'm not wrong. So 2013, they are conceptualizing gender equality. And the people who are talking about gender, And women, especially women, they are talking about equality will not work hard. Equality cannot be achieved because we are at a differential level. Like women are here, men are here. And if we give them equal access to everything, then the gap will never be. It will always remain the same. So everybody is talking about, at least feminists are talking about that forget about equality. We don't want to be equal to the men because we cannot be. That we need more resources so we can achieve the same level playing field with the men. That is a problematic because UN is conceptualizing not gender equity goal, they are saying gender equality. You see the problem here. Again, in their mindset, they always think about among 17, we have added one. And then what we have added, again they're using the term equality, which has been discarded by feminists a long, long ago. They're saying, no, we don't want equality. We don't want to be equal to men. We want more resources because we are underprivileged. And in the patriarchal system, men are privileged. So to achieve that level, we need more resources at our disposal. So that is the thing. And also another problem is like sustainable development goal when it talks about women, they think women is a universal one single category. Which is also very, very problematic. The feminists who are working at the grassroots level in very different parts of the world, they're always coming up with the ideas gender concerns are so many different. Somewhere it is for basic food, somewhere it is for education and access to education, somewhere it is a health facility. These basic things like food, education and health, and somewhere it is the equal position at the corporate houses, or somewhere it is the kind of demand for the equal wage. So it's so many different, and gender is so it's very difficult to think about how women's empowerment can work in a village of Purulia, and it can work in the city of Shikoku. It's completely different, and that different dialogue it's very difficult to bring in within this one solution for all kind of sustainable development goal model. The goal means আমি বাংলায় বলি হ্যাঁ আমি গোল গোলই থাকে you can't answer what exactly it is saying. So it's like আমরা বাংলা ইউজ করি না ওয়ার্ডটা যে বুঝতে পারি না যেটাকে আমরা বলি যে গোল গোল করে বলে দিল কেউ kind of. So it's like that. So এটা হচ্ছে যে what I would like to say here again in this sustainable development goal and then climate crisis is hanging around us and we were for certain part of time we were in a denial mode that what must things and because I can remember that Pacholi was a hassle because of the thing that when he said first time that Gangotri Glacier is retreating, everybody mimicked Pacholi. That time when Pacholi said it was long ago. And then everybody was avoiding that, no, it is not happening. And it is not like, somebody has to go to read a book or read a well-articulated paper to understand the climate change. Everybody is facing that climate change. Everywhere it is happening. And then again, when we are thinking about climate change, we are thinking about our environment. And again, that case of the feminists are saying, okay, you are talking about climate change, but where are the women? You can see the women in this dialogue. Where are the women? And they probably one of the time, okay, we need some women in the policy-making bodies, and when we pick up somebody in the policy-making bodies, and including women, who will refer? We never raise the voice. That is typical patriarchal tendency. That is why I discuss inclusion policy. Because inclusion policy is all problem. Why? Because then the question is who will include and whom they will include. There is a big power equation in between. And in this inclusion process, the women's voices would never have. So that is, again, a climate crisis when it is approaching, then feminists are saying that it's not a good idea to talk about. That without women, without getting into board, then how we think about a climate crisis or ecological crisis. But I would like to get back to another issue. When we think about whether it is a sustainable development goal or it is a climate crisis, we are concerned about the future of the earth, right? So we are in a problematic situation. Everybody is saying that we are in an anthropocene. We have done everything upside down and we have changed all natural systems
longer term, we have changed all those systems. We have destroyed rivers, we have polluted seas, we have finished all the plants and other species, even Amazon, part of the Amazon forest, rainforest, and everywhere, in every country, there is a cutting of trees and forest decline, the forest areas are declining every year for different kinds of activities. Now think about why do I think that the gender question is very important in the sustainable development goal and not in the only under goal 5? Because every other is talking about poverty. One goal is talking about poverty. And if you take the worldwide database, you will see that feminization of poverty is tremendous. In a single mother without job, rampant in those and even in our countries, you will see that there is a huge presence of a very high presence of women in the poverty sector. And when we think about poverty, diminishing poverty is one sustainable development goal. How can we leave the gender concern within that, right? So, like somebody is talking about bar the ocean. That is one goal which is concerned about the ocean. And think about when there is a decline in the fish stock in the coastal areas because of a huge pollution in the sea. Fishermen, if they see that there is not enough catch to survive on, probably they will find, okay, let us go to Surat or Delhi or somewhere to work as a sorry, it's like a migrant labor somewhere else to feed the families. And then whatever fishes used to come and the women who were engaged in that selling, collecting the fish, selling somewhere and making some money for their survival, they cannot move. They cannot move because they cannot go to Surat, they cannot go to Delhi, they cannot go to Trivandrum because they have the entire family to take care of. They have elderly people to take care, they have children to take care who are in the school, who cannot be taken out of school. And on top of that, probably they have a small, tiny piece of agricultural land where they raise crops, right? And then they cooperating. When we think about the climate crisis and agricultural agrarian crisis, as I with Borun and Kunal, we have worked on this agrarian crisis of Bengal, but in that book we didn't touch the gender concern, but hopefully we will be talking about gender concern and in a different perspective. But what we have noted that it is becoming a huge gender concern. Why? Because when there is a very smaller size of plot of farmland, the men cannot earn enough from that small tiny plots of land. Whether it is in Sundarban or the Himalayan region or the desert region, probably not in Bardhaman or Medinipur, like where there is a big chunk of land allotted for a farmer. But if it is a size smaller and non-profitable kind of, then men are passive because men are out for considerable earning from some other towns or cities in India. And if it's sometimes not enough available, then sometimes people are heading to all Middle Eastern countries, and you will see that in the international airport, you will always see that from Bangladesh, there is a huge number of people who are speaking Bengali, and in any airport in Dubai or somewhere, you will always listen Bengali. Somebody is talking in Bengali, and all these countries. And not only that, from Kerala and all other countries, there is a huge out migration. And when this out migration is happening, who is staying back? The woman. The woman is there and our money is approaching. And the man is in Delhi or somewhere and he is not in a job which have the condition of work from home. He's a laborer. So he cannot just quickly, he is in a private company, probably in construction, and he cannot easily come, probably he doesn't have enough money to come back home quickly when people know that Ramkhan is approaching. So the woman is there. Woman is facing the cycle. Woman has to take care of the whatever resources they have at their disposal and the family members to protect the children, to protect the. So everything is going. If we are talking about environmental climate crisis, we are talking about. So it is becoming more and more the crisis of the woman because women are at the forefront of this crisis to face the crisis. to mitigate the crisis. So it's not that climate crisis is like, there is an increase in temperature, sea level will rise, Sundarban will be underwater, or maybe some years after Kolkata is at stake. We are always thinking on those lines. But think about what is happening there, who are at the forefront of those crises. And we all know that climate is becoming unpredictable more and more. If we take, you can Google the number of the years where cyclone hit Sundarban areas, you will see that it is frequent now. Earlier it was there, but it was not so frequent. And it is not about Sundarban, it is about everywhere. Where there is already scarcity of water, it is becoming scarce. And who is going to suffer? Women. Because it is still the domain of women when we talk about water. And আমি এটা খুব সুন্দর করে বলতে ভালোবাসি এখনো আমরা এটা অভ্যেস করতে পারিনি বাড়িতে থেকে বাবা জল দাও সবাই মা জল দাও বলি যাদের মা আছে মানে আমার মা জল দিচ্ছি এবং আমরা বলি সো এই যে আমরা মা জল দাও কথাটা ব্যবহার করি এই একটা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ বুঝিয়ে দেয় যে জলটা কিভাবে মেয়েদেরই বিষয় হয়ে যাচ্ছে ঘরে ঘরে এবার policy makers are okay, you are thinking about domestic water, okay, fine, we understand that domestic water is the issue of women. I will say no, because you can see that feminization of agriculture is happening. And I'm not talking about women and domestic water, I'm talking about women and irrigation water. Because irrigation water is very important for agriculture, for raising of crops, how to get access to that. So that is also becoming important. If you are talking about pollution, water, polluting a river, then I would like to talk about the women because women uses probably know that the Baghdad Chingri, is a collection which is actually it is done by women in the Sundarban areas. And if there is huge pollution in the river, who is going to the worst? Who is the women? Who are standing in the water for so long time. So it's kind of, and if there is an influx of high tide and cyclone and salinization of land that is happening anywhere, and we all know that probably if there is no cyclone or tidal surge, there is a political economy of making water saline so that you leave dropping and you give the land to the very owners, and Sandeshkhali is in the picture. So Sandeshkhali we have to understand not only the political crisis in Sundarban. Sandeshkhali, we have to understand the political economy, grassroots political economy of that place. It's not just BJP, CPIM versus. No, it's not. There is a huge political economy of conversion of land from the farmland to berries. And in this process, again, when you're talking about Sandeshkhali, we know that the women are talking about many things. So they, again, in such case also, if there is a political violence, the worst sufferers are women. So it's like that when we talk about everyday lives, Kundalaji has mentioned that and pointed out that everyday lives are very important to understand. And if we think about everyday lives other than making a long-term maps, and we love this Passion and Temporal, these two terms, we love it. So we always try to think about the space and we add the time on that so that we can make nice maps. Even these days we have very nice GIS software we can make really nice maps that these areas are shrinking or this is increasing, something like that. But it is not talking about the political economy of the place. It is not talking about the political ecology of the place. So what we are at the time when we need to think about no more patterns, we have done enough patterns. But patterns are important because macro picture is important. I'm not saying that maps are not necessary. Of course necessary. Because maps gives us the idea where I have to look it. So maps and broad data are important, but we cannot end with this. We have to find so what we left for sociologists and other people, anthropologists to walk into, we left the processes, right? So we only, in geography, we love the geomorphological processes, right? We always read Thornbury and all the books I have read during when I was a student, that Thornbury was the book. was geomorphology. And now you have many. I'm not getting into that, but because I don't teach primary or geomorphology these days. So process, we were interested in the process. We were also interested in the ecosystem. So we were always interested in the processes which were natural, right? Geomorphology or ecosystem or ecological processes we were interested in. But we were never interested in understanding the processes where human is included. And human is very much part of geography cannot exist if we exclude women, exclude human from the field. And then if we include human, then it is core of the subject itself. Without human, we cannot talk about rivers and glaciers and whatever. We have to include. It's a very nature of the subject. And if we include that human as part of the subject for concern, then how can we lead the processes which are happening, which are social, which are economic, that are far more important than the geomorphological processes these days, because no river is free. No river's processes are entirely natural. And the scientists are claiming that there is no nature these days. If there is a nature, that is a social nature. Because we have kept it natural. That's why it stays like reserve forest or protected forest. How can we say that these are natural forests? No, these are no more natural. Their growth is natural, but they are not natural these days. We have protected them to keep it for certain purpose for us. That's why they are there. So that's why people are talking about even Antarctic or Arctic or whatever we talk about in this entire earth. It is always we are talking about the nature. And so what I'm trying to say, again coming to the gender question, and the more we are interested in the social and economic processes, what is happening around us in everyday lives, then we cannot live outside. As long as we are not interested in the processes, then we will only think about literacy rate or this database. And these days we don't have any data. Government have decided not to do the census. So we have dropped this completely. We have no data to do. And government doesn't want. If it is showing that India has not progressed much, then how can we claim that we have become Vishnu Guru these days? So better not to have data, not to generate data. Data policy decision. And we were thinking that probably because of the COVID there is no census. Think about it. 3 years passed after COVID, there is no census. Because census will not give us a rosy picture of this at this moment. And that's why government is not interested in doing population census. So think about, so our problem is we don't have that data. And somewhere we have data, but we doubt about the government data. So we are in a problematic situation. We have to generate our data. Even if it is small, even the sample size is small, even the 2 villages or even 1 village, I would say that we have to think about the social and ecological processes which are operating around us, and that is the everyday life and everyday geography. Geography is so dynamic. It is changing so rapidly around us, everywhere. The road was not there, now there is a road. There was a small building, and now it's a high-rise apartment. Everyday geography is changing around us. It is not like it was 50 years before. It was a more static for at least 10 years. And in the cities, in the villages, everywhere, the visible geography changing. So if the visible geography changing so fast, think about the invisible, gender question, social question, cultural question, political question. How can we lead this? We cannot. So we have to focus more and more in the social, economic, and political, cultural processes, which finally produces our pattern. Pattern is there. Pattern is important. I'm not saying that pattern is not important. Yes, but not that mapping the pattern, but understanding how this pattern is emerging, why this pattern is emerging, what are the processes. That deeper understanding we have to do. And then we start, because I was listening to Gana's talk, and Gana was mentioning that we don't have the feminist research methods because Suwana read my paper I read one piece, like, how finding women, locating women in geography. So the process itself is so patriarchal, so full of men, that you cannot even think about hiring the feminist research methodology within the subject and how we are going to measure that in gender concern. How you are going to measure the process, because we need methods. And where we learn the methods? In the curriculum. Curriculum is not in our control. We are trying to make our control over this, but patriarchal forces is operating all around us, within the discipline itself. It doesn't allow us to include more qualitative research methods within our curriculum. And if we don't even what, think about it. So many mapping techniques we are teaching, even in the PhD coursework. How many contents are there within the PhD coursework which is talking about qualitative research methods? So if we don't train our researcher on the methods, who understand the processes, which is social, which is economic, which is political, which is cultural, how researchers will handle this situation? How they will understand? So the problems is within us, within the discipline itself, and I won't say that we will give up. We will not. We are not giving up. Sumana is not giving up. I am not giving up. We are trying our level best to fight with these patriarchal forces to change the situation a bit so that we can include more and more qualitative research methods so that we can force our students go to the field, try to understand the processes, because patterns are easy to do. দুটো ম্যাপ নিয়ে বসে আমি ইজিলি প্যাটার্ন চেঞ্জ সবকিছু আজকালকার দিনে আর কিছু লাগবে না, এত ভালো ম্যাপ এবং ইভেন এত ইজি সফটওয়্যার হয়ে গেছে যে লেমেরও একটা ম্যাপ বানিয়ে ফেলতে পারে, এবং সেই ম্যাপটা থেকে আজকের দিনে আর খুব হাই রেঞ্জ সফিস্টিকেটেড সফটওয়্যারেরও প্রয়োজন নেই ম্যাপ মেকিং এর জন্য, যেটা কিনা আর্লি ডেজ অফ এমার্জেন্সি এন্ড জিআইএস এ মনে হচ্ছিল বাবা আমাদের এত এত দামি সফটওয়্যার আর কিনবো, এইসব নিয়ে আমরা মাথা খারাপ করে ফেলেছি কি করে কিনবো এক্সেট্রা করে, আর এগুলো আর আছে না। গুগল এত কিছু ম্যাপ বানিয়ে দিয়েছে যে আর কোনো সফটওয়্যারের প্রয়োজনই পড়ছে না, ওরা সব কিছু ম্যাপ বানিয়ে দিয়েছে। So pattern is understanding pattern is has become much easier. Why would we put our effort to do that? এটা অনেক সময় আমাদের ডিপার্টমেন্টের একজন কলিগ বলেন ওই ম্যাপটা কেন বানিয়েছো, ওই ম্যাপটা তো আছে। And note it down. If he is saying that this map exists, that means that map is there. And if you have already made map by a company, why you do invest in your time to make a map? Because it is easier. You can do the best job. You can do it with your computer. And these days, the empirical research is always hard. I have spent a lot of time in the field, and I still do. Sometimes I work with students. Sometimes I try to work with ones to understand the situation. But it is always tough. It's not easy. And now we are in a time when we think that we will go and do the field for some time. But understanding the processes are far more difficult. Questionnaire doesn't help much. And if questionnaire doesn't help much, questionnaire is sometimes you can hire people and give some money and do the questionnaire and you can do your PhD. For my students, there is total requirement. They can't do it. They can compromise the number of samples, but they cannot. And I know how many days they are spending in the field. So I always say that okay, whatever work you do your best. You are not going to get Nobel Prize, but you know that you have done real good work, which actually what we actually do in our research to portray the reality. And if our data are misleading, if our observations are not correct, so what reality we are going to present? And we are completely not taking into consideration the gender concern because students, researchers, they don't know what are the methods. How will I approach? Like I was listening to one person who was presenting his work, and among many different questions, he has kept a boy, and he has kept a question that violence by spouse, something like that was in the question. And he is reading the questionnaire. I asked him that, did you manage to get the answer of a question, is there is a spousal violence? He said, yes, ma'am. And women, whom you interview? Of course, সেটা তো বলবেন না যে আমি আমার বউ নই বা ওকে ঢাকা দিয়ে ফেলে দিই, সেটা তো বলবেন না। নিশ্চয়ই মেয়ের কোশ্চেন করছো, তুমি ছেলে তুমি একটা বাড়িতে ওয়াকিং করলে মেয়েটাকে জিজ্ঞেস করলে মেয়ে সুন্দর করে বলে দেবে হ্যাঁ আমার বউ আমাকে মানে কি বলছো? So why is doing that? Because he doesn't know the method. আর মেথড তো কেন জানে না, ওটা আমাদের কাজ। আমরা ওদেরকে মেথড গুলো শিখতে দিচ্ছি না, আমরা বলছি অল কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ টেকনিক্স প্রবাবিলিটি আর সব ভালো ভালো আছে, ফ্যাক্টর অ্যানালিসিস আর কত কিছু যেখানে যেখানে পড়ানো হয় যা যা পড়ানো শিখে সব তোমরা শেখো, যেগুলো কোনো কাজে দিতে অ্যাকচুয়ালি এটা সকাল ব্যানার্জি বহু প্রায়ই বলতেন, আমার খুব ভালো লাগে, আমি সবসময় বোধ করি সকালের কাছে সমাজটা আমাকে চলে না। It doesn't, the society doesn't, doesn't contain to the mathematical calculations, because human is a difficult organic being, and we really don't know how our mind works, and sometimes we don't know even ourselves. So the perception, the behavior, the pattern, the way we react to certain things are very different. And gender is one of the, as I said, that gender is not like, in a fancy way you have one thing that when you think about gender, how you incorporate it, then you see that feminist or gender geography within thought, and you have, 1 or 2 years units in development discourse, that's all. And environmental geography with these names, the touch of even gender. And we are talking about agriculture, no touch of gender. We are talking about, think about the river, think about the glacier. How can we not talk about that if we are thinking about, I don't know, I'm not time and so কতক্ষণ বলা বিশেষ করে আমি এনি টাইম সরি 5 minutes ওকে ওকে আমাদের কিছু স্ক্রিপ্ট এমন নেই যেখানে sometimes আমাদের আসলে 1 ঘন্টার ক্লাস থাকে তো আর আমরা একটু মোটিভেটেড হয়ে ক্লাসে পড়াতে চাই যে আমাদের রিয়েল অনেকটা টাইম। So I want to come to that point. Like when we think about the geomorphology, we can think about the river. Think about, we talk about in geomorphology, we talk about the river bank erosion. Right? River bank erosion, we always try to map and try to look at how the river is shifting its courses and how it is reaching the embankments or reaching or breaking the river bank every on the soil and the land and houses are going in the water. Overnight sometimes it happens like that. So when I think about the river bank erosion, and if this river readily changing because of the climate change or something else, and then more unpredictable rainfall regime, and then more unpredictable flood itself, and then more unpredictable river bank erosion, and think about it, a house is lost in the river bank erosion. And the policymakers will calculate how many acres of land has been lost. What is, they always try to quantify because they have to pay the compensation. That's why they quantify. It is not a problem. But what I'm trying to say here, the house is not just a four walls, one roof, a construction for a woman. It is much more than that. And the emotional bond of a house of a woman is never comparable with the emotional bond of a man to that house. It is always different. Probably the house was built by the money earned by the man, but he never spent that much time of his life within that house. He actually is not attached to that house. And think about, it's not about, probably there is a replacement, there is a kind of, they have some kind of other kinds of settlement they have gone into and living there. Probably that woman has some trees in their courtyard. And where they are now, they have probably built 2 rooms and they have no space, which is called courtyard. And courtyard is it has a huge meaning in women's life. Because women can do whatever they want, raising crops, raising vegetables, raising flowers, and making plants to make their survival. আমি এখনো মনে করতে পারি যে চর বই গ্রামে রিভার বইয়েছে লাইভলিহুড চ্যাপ্টার আমাকে একজন ম্যারেজ করছে যে আমি যখন বলছি যে তোমার লাইভলিহুড তোমার কন্ট্রিবিউশনটা আমি কি করে বুঝবো, বললো কেন যদি হিসেব বসে না, আমার তো টাকা গাছ আছে, আমার ইঁচড় ধরো আমি মোটামুটি এতগুলো ইঁচড় থেকে আমি তরকারি বানাই, ইঁচড়ের দাম তুমি হিসেব করে বসে নাও। আচ্ছা আমার ধরো চারটে মুরগি, চারটে হাঁস পালন করি, সেই হাঁসগুলো বছরে এতগুলো ডিম দেয়, এই ডিমগুলো আমি বাড়িতে খাই, তাহলে ওটা আমার কন্ট্রিবিউশন। We don't know how to capture the real situation. So when you go open up, you try to understand, and that was mentioned by Kuntalali, that epistemological processes needs to change. And I recently have written one piece there for this Banking hierarchy in the research process, and I would be very happy if I think Anisha, I have sent you that paper. It's not a very articulate academic paper. It's a very popular and using language paper, and a smaller one. And read it, understand how to do the field work, how to bridge the gap between the researcher and the research person. We always think we are knowledgeable. We are not, because we are not open to capture the ideas, the knowledge of the person who are experiencing that work. And we need to open ourselves. We need to bridge that gap. We have to break that hierarchy, and then only we can understand what women want for their life. And it is not just about inclusion, but when we talk about policy all the time, we hear that inclusion, inclusion. And I will say that there is no necessity of including, don't exclude. And how can we expect that the policymakers, who are mostly men, they will be very generous to bring in women's voices if they always say at home, "Chup karo to tumi ki na আমার মুখের উপর কথা বলছো?" How can we expect? So if we try to think about changing the situation for gender relations, we have to start working from home and not to exclude. Then probably inclusion will come one day. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for taking more time.
I'd like to invite questions. I'm sure this talk has generated many doubts, queries, questions. Much time do we have on the show for questions? Not that much. No. Let us take 3 questions. In class, at the end of the class, I always say, if there are no questions, either you are mesmerized, that is the probability here, or otherwise, I have not reached you. That cannot be the question. And the second one cannot be the option here. First of all, Madam, thank you so much for invigorating speech, and you have actually presented some new perspectives into the thought of SDG. I doubt whether any of us have thought like this earlier. So you have raised many questions, and these are these have really, I think people will go back and think about them and try to do more research on them. Thank you so much. My question is not a question exactly. Actually, you said that women need access to resources because definitely they do not have access to equal resources. But do you think that only access to resource will give them the place that they deserve in the society? Because in my one of the papers, I'm recently working on women and gender, though my basic subject is economics and my PhD and the other works are not on gender. Recently, I've been into this field and I was working on the effects of gender neutral subsidies on education and gender specific subsidies. And I wanted to see what is the effect on the education of girls as well as on its effect on the labor market. So I think that even if they have access to equal education, which is of course an important resource, there are many other hindrances which do not give them equality in the labor market. There is labor market, uh, there is wage discrimination, although there is very much of lack of unanimity whether the discrimination per se actually exists or not. There is occupational segregation, and there are so many aspects. So, uh, do you think that access to resource is sufficient for this point?
Thank you very much for raising this issue. Actually, I could not cover everything because there is so huge a field, and as I said, that it is not just one like SDG, among 17 SDG is one, that there is everywhere in each and every SDGs. Actually, no. The straight answer is no. I was mentioning that that access to resources is only one in this. But even if another question, another topic we always love to talk about that empowerment kind of. But before empowerment, I think that what we need actually the agency building. You know? And agency building comes from the upbringing of the parents at the family level. And a woman is a girl child when she's growing up, she is always receiving, no, this is you can't do it, or this would not be good if you do it. So many no's she hears. And when she becomes a young adult, 25 years old, and probably have got a job, and she has to move to another city in Bangalore or somewhere, she tries to take the mother because she never knew how to live on her own. And this is called socialization process. It is the I was talking about more processes. The socialization is very important because the agency building is very important for women. Otherwise, even if you give a lump chunk of money to someone, it won't work. And the wage gap. Actually, we talk about the wage gap and or salary gap, whatever it is. But we forget the constraint behind it. I told that when men move out to Surat or Trivandrum, women cannot move out because their feet are tied with the domestic responsibilities. And probably what she can do, probably she can commute a little distance, that's all. And we all know that we call it G local, the very derogatory term we use, the morning local which comes from Kati or Namkhana or Canning or somewhere else. So probably they know that this much we can do, even if a very meager wage. So they can commute, they can finish every domestic work before they leave home, and they can do the rest of the things. So when they come up, they can come back in the night. So that's why they compromise. They get locally. They have no other options. But if the wage level is low, then men will never accept a job. Women are compelled to accept because she cannot move out. And these days, what is happening? Migrant labor. In case of migrant labor, I have interest in that also. Sometimes look into that. And that migrant labor, earlier the Bengali laborers used to move to Delhi, Punjab, somewhere in the northern India. And now they are moving to the south. You know why? Because 200 gap in the wage level, 200 rupees. And that's why they are moving there. So it's always the men are in a position to change the location to get they are in a position to bargain. But women are not in a position to bargain. And we love to raise our women with so full of emotions that anyway তারপরে দেখা গেল যে এটা যদি তুমি নাও তোমার বাবা কিন্তু তোমার সঙ্গে আর কথা বলবেন না এটা তখন বলে না so it's kind of the socialization the upbringing right the way we try to train our boys we don't try to train our girls in the same way and that's why at the end result so no, it's not at all only access to resources, but upbringing and agency building, I would say. Agency is in all of us, unless somebody is controlling our agency. Similarly, as I said, that if somebody doesn't exclude us, inclusion is would not be necessary. So I hope I could answer.
Any other question? I would just like to add to this. What Gopal said that this sensitization and agency that we talk about. I think each of us here in this room, let us start with this. Each of us also need to sensitize men much more than teaching our girls, little girls, don't do this, don't go out, don't do this. Because when you talk about when I was speaking to migrant laborers, construction workers, one of my students was working on that. Metro construction work, construction. Laborer family from Bihar, what do you think? Some of them have brought their women and children with them because there's nobody else there. And they can also think about alternative employment, domestic help, and other things that come together. But every day is a challenge. When we provide some infrastructure for the construction workers, they have to make their own little tents and whatever, some kind of something to just cover their heads. It is not good enough for the women. It's not safe. And the world is not safe because, sorry to say, no pun intended, but the world is not safe because men are not sensitized enough. Otherwise, this would have been a very safe place. Living in a tent or living in an open space or us walking around, young girls like you walking around in the night would not be much. So sensitization, I think, agency sensitization.
I would like to add a long way in this because sometimes I am invited for this, Women's Day kind of talk in colleges. I take one for you. But I always take co-education school, college, and I say that I need 80% students attendance who are boys. Because মেয়েদের কাছে মায়ের কাছে হাসি গল্প করে কি বলা ছেলেদের কাছে তো আমি আরেকটু বলতে চাইছি আমি বলার আগে ওদেরকে কিছু টাস্ক দিই আমি কাগজ বেশ কিছু বাড়ি থেকে নিয়ে যাই দিয়ে ওদের সার্কুলেট করে দিতে বলি এবারে দিয়েছিলাম যে ছেলেদের লিখতে দিয়েছিলাম যে ওরা যদি মনে করে যে মেয়েদের ইকুয়াল অধিকার থাকা উচিত তো ওরা কি করতে চায় ভিতরে তো এত সুন্দর সব লিখে টিকে দিয়েছে বুঝলে ছেলেগুলো যদি তার একটুও করে তাহলেও অনেকখানি এবং আমি ওদেরগুলো নিয়ে ওখানে পড়ি কে কি বলেছে ওগুলো নিয়ে আলোচনা করি তুমি একদম ঠিক কথা বলেছো যে আমাদের মোর কনভারসেশন করা দরকার ছেলেদের সঙ্গে
But do boys schools invite us for women's to talk?
No, I don't.
Where it is?
Only boys there is a college. There is no college for boys only. Right? The schools I never been. Schools I never been.
You would not see boys schools.
If they ask me, I am.
That's the stage where they learn and become sensitive. And I do not think that boys schools do celebrate Women's Day. I haven't seen much of it. Women's Day is a celebration. It has to be everywhere. Well, I think we must round up. If there are no more questions.
I don't have any question, but the only answer I get in my house is that তুমি লেকচার দাও কলেজে তাই জন্য এখানে লেকচার দিচ্ছি তুমি কিছু এমনি ভালো কথা বলার চেষ্টা করি বোঝানোর চেষ্টা করি আমার হাজবেন্ডকে হি হ্যাজ দিস ওয়ান আনসার তুমি কলেজে লেকচার দাও ওখানে দাও তো দিস ইজ হোয়াট আই গেট ফ্রম হিম আমি কোনো একটা ভালো ইস্যু ভালো জিনিস বোঝাবার চেষ্টা করি তো এই জিনিসগুলো হয় মানে যেটা ম্যাম বললেন সবই ট্রু যে how we are raising our boy child বা male child সেটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট। কিন্তু তার একটা হয় কারণ দেন আমরা মনে একটু সাবজেক্ট ভেরিয়েশন হয়, আমরা একটু হিউম্যান ইস্যু নিয়ে পড়াশোনা করেছি, হাজবেন্ড সায়েন্স নিয়ে পড়েছে, আমার মনে হয় এই সাবজেক্ট গুলোতেও একটা হয়। ওই জন্য আইআইটিসে আই থিঙ্ক ওরা স্টার্টও করেছিল ওই হ্যাঁ না ওই মোরাল ভ্যালুস নিয়ে উনি কোর্সেস স্টার্ট
But the BTech boys will say, I've been in IIT. I studied humanities HSS, so I was given the responsibility of taking some social science classes as a PhD scholar for the BTech students.
কিন্তু আমার এখানে ওর আনসারটা হচ্ছে যে তুমি তোমার হাজবেন্ডকে বদলাতে চাও। You cannot change. Why I'm saying this, you cannot change an adult person. Husband over wife ho, you can't change. That person unless that particular person wants to change himself or herself. But what you can do, raise your boy in a right, raise your girl in a right. So apply your knowledge, apply your experiences, and try to. I'm always focusing on upbringing. You know? So accordingly, you have to keep.
It's very difficult to bring it down to few points because it's mostly male, and therefore there is an absence of female voices. And even if there are, a book like the one of women counselors tells you, yeah, that book tells you how much of the voice, in spite of having our reservations for women, we need reservations for women. Come to think of it, we need to reserve their rights, and then there is no voice because it is again controlled by men. Because most of the women counselors do not have a voice of their own for women, of women kind of thing. And then there is the academic voices which are ignored because of academic voices like yours maybe are ignored in policy matters because again there is again governments or policymakers will not look at things the way things which are inconvenient. And then there are the thing about global agencies talking about multitudes of goals without talking about the 60% of the world that is happening. Then there is finally the focus on everyday lives, which Kuntalaji talks about, which Shapnaji talks about, and has been carried forward by Professor Kamath. And also, we have started work. I must tell you that in the PhD coursework where I was a coordinator for the first time after a long time, I have included 50% of the lectures was for qualitative approaches and 50% for everything else. That was not seen very well by a lot of people. Statistics are important. Statistics classগুলো না GIS যথেষ্ট ক্লাসগুলো না I said okay GIS অনেক পড়ছে undergraduate থেকে GIS করছে, let them do it. If they are using it in their PhD thesis, let them learn it. There are hundreds of people to teach them, but qualitative research on the UG তে নেই, PG তে নেই, so this is the only place where I can put it in. I have included it in the urban geography and other syllabus, but it's very minimal. Just 17 students in a group of 120 is our intake. 17 people learn qualitative methods out of 120. Because I have the special paper, I have the opportunity to teach them ethnography and other things. Anyway, so to round up the lecture, thank you very much, Mr. Chandra, for this wonderful lecture, and thank you all for the interaction. Now, Anisha, I'm requesting the organizer and to close this for permission to close the session. There are no more questions.